Hello, my name is Connor Walsh. I'm one of the members of the Skynet root team, and today we're going to start a video series that's going to help to train new admins for the Skynet cluster. So some of these videos will be done as screen captures, say if I'm typing in the terminal showing how to do stuff, and some of them will be done on my whiteboard, just because it's easier to walk through some concepts like that. So this first one will be primarily based on the whiteboard. What it's going to be is an overview of all the machines and different services that are on Skynet at the moment. Just for the purposes of explanation, I'm going to draw it out. There'll be a digital copy of this available afterwards that has all the machines and services on it. So I'm just going to walk you through the different services and the network that's available on the Skynet cluster at the moment. So the internet connection for Skynet comes from a provider called HeNet, who are the same company that supplied the internet to UL, so our internet connection comes through UL. So their connection comes in through a special firewall that ITD has set up for us, a router. We don't have access to this, but this is where the Skynet network starts to come in. Then that comes down into one of our machines, which is a firewall. And that machine is called Agent Jones. So all of the internet for Skynet comes in through this machine called Agent Jones, and then comes out to the Skynet switch. So in order to get into the cluster, you have to come through our firewall, and we've lots of different rules for blocking stuff and only allowing the services that we actually provide to get in and out through this firewall. So far we've gone in as far as the switch. So this switch is where all of the other machines connect in to the Skynet network. Normally what I wanted to do was walk through the different machines in the actual physical cabinet, but because of this current situation, we can't do that. So I'm going to walk through it on the whiteboard. So Skynet has lots of different machines. The main one, which a lot of you are probably familiar with already, is the actual Skynet box. So when a normal user logs into Skynet, this is the actual box that they log into to do their stuff. So this is primarily used for SSH by the members. The next one that's on my list, just before I go on further, you might have noticed the theme already, but all the Skynet machines are named after artificial intelligences from books, literature and film. So they're all fictional artificial intelligences like Skynet, Agent Jones, Ultron, Jarvis. So we try to use fictional ones, like we wouldn't have ones called Alexa or Walton or anything like that. So anyway, the next one that's on our list is Jur. And what Jur does is, Jur is the mail server. So all of the Skynet mail comes in through Jur. So whenever you send an email on Skynet, it goes through Jur. The next one on my list is Jarvis. So Jarvis is what we call the virtual machine host, or VM host. So instead of having physical boxes for every single service on Skynet, which is kind of what we used to do, but we're now transitioning towards virtual machines because it's a lot easier to manage virtual machines than physical boxes. This is one of the newest machines in Skynet, Jarvis. So we run a lot of our virtual machines, actually nearly all of our virtual machines have been migrated to Jarvis at this stage. So lots of services and stuff are run on Jarvis as virtual machines. So I'll come back to Jarvis and actually explain what virtual machines are run on them as well. So the next one is Ultron. And Ultron is the NAS for Skynet. Ultron and Jarvis were bought together in 2017. So they're fairly new machines. So Ultron is the NAS. So basically all the storage for Skynet is done on Ultron. All of the machines in the Skynet cluster have very small storage capacities. So Ultron is where the actual files are stored. There's about 24 terabytes of space on Ultron. And all the disks for the virtual machines on Jarvis is where they're stored as well. So we've actually set up a dedicated link between Ultron and Jarvis, just so they can communicate very quickly, because all of the data that's used by those virtual machines depend on Ultron. The next one on my list is Calculon. So Calculon is the old NAS for Skynet. So that was what was being used before Ultron. The reason Calculon hasn't been retired is there's still some services being run off Calculon. We're in the process of migrating them away so that we can retire Calculon. We've retired a lot of boxes in the last 6 months. I'd say we've retired 5 or 6 servers in the last 6 months. Just because, and moved them to virtual machines on Jarvis, which I'll come back to. The next one is Bender. Bender is used by the root team to monitor all the health of all the servers and virtual machines on the cluster. The reason the Bender is a separate box is because basically if any of the boxes go down, say if Jarvis went down, we wouldn't know about it, so it's less likely the Bender box will go down. So this one monitors all the other boxes and monitors health and stuff. Kit is the next one. Kit is actually quite an important box, so it does a lot of services. These are DNS. So like we run our own DNS server because Skynet.ie has a lot of different host names that we run as well, and we run a lot of domain names as well. So we run our own DNS. DNS allows you to convert IP addresses into names like Skynet.ie. It also runs LDAP. LDAP is a service that runs logins for the cluster. So all of your login information is stored in an LDAP system on Kit. So whenever you log into Skynet, Skynet talks to Kit and checks that you're authenticated and then serves your files and stuff based on what's happened. And Kit is also used by the root team for management. So using Kit, we can log into any other machine on the Skynet network a lot more easily than we can from outside. Then we have Caro. Caro is the web server. So whenever you are served a web page on Skynet, it comes from Caro. And then we have Marvin, which is our EPS. So Marvin is an uninterruptible power supply. So if the power drops in the server room, the machines will stay up for another 10 or 20 minutes, which gives them time to shut down properly, and then we can start them up again properly. The reason Marvin is on the network is so that we can monitor the health of the UPS, and that's done by Bender as well. And that's all the physical machines that are on operation in the server room. We do have another machine called Wintermute. This is in the basement of the library. So this is in the basement of the library, and it allows to back up all of important files, say like system configuration files, and things like recent changes to people's home directories and stuff. We back all of that up off-site. We have this server. It's in the server room in the basement of the library. So if anything happened to the ICU, we would still be able to recover a lot of our data. Now this volume is significantly smaller than the one on Ultron, so not all of the files are being backed up, but most of the critical files are being backed up. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Jarvis. So Jarvis currently is running about 18 different VMs, all of which do lots of different services. So I'm going to call out some of the main ones. Or I might actually call out them all, we'll see. So, the first one is called Eve VM02, and that runs MySQL. So Eve was a server that used to be a VM host on Skynet, which was recently retired. So the VMs from Eve got moved on to Jarvis. So that's why it's called like that. But we wanted to retain the names for legacy reasons. So the next one is EVM04. And this is DNS as well, and it's our backup DNS. So most systems, when you're running DNS, will have two DNS servers, will be a fallback one. So in Kit, it's our primary DNS. So whenever changes are made to DNS on Kit, they get copied to this VM here. And it just gives a backup option for us. In case Kit was to go down, we'd still have DNS. Next one is Eve VM06, and this is a proxy server. So you might be wondering, why do we need a proxy server? Well, for security reasons, internet access is blocked back through the firewall from a lot of these machines and virtual machines. This is to prevent spam and that kind of stuff. So if someone is working on one of these machines and needs to get access to the outside, they can use this proxy server to proxy back through the firewall and get internet access to download stuff like packages or things like that they might need. Now we move on to the Wally VMs. So we used to have a server called Wally that was retired. It was another VM host. You might be wondering, why is there only 2, 4, and 6 of Eve VMs? The other VMs were running services that were retired, or the VMs could have been retired themselves as well. So the first one we have is Wally VM01, and this runs Webmail. So Skynet has a service called webmail.skynet.ie, which allows you to view your emails and send emails from a web browser. So that service is run from this VM. Wally VM02 is still there, but I'm going to skip it because it's not an important service. Wally VM03. This runs lists. So we run a lot of mailing lists for both ourselves and for other societies and clubs within UL. This is the VM that does all of that. So say when you get an email to comsoc-news@list.skynet.ie, that email was received by this and then forwarded out to all the list members. So that's the VM that we use to manage our mailing lists. We're going to skip Wally VM04 because it's not important, and 05 and 06 and 07 because those services are not, the VMs are still there, but the services are not that important anymore to Skynet, so I don't think new admins need to hear about them. The next VM that I want to talk about is Chappie. Chappie. So again, I talked about naming things after AIs. In years gone by, it was just physical machines. VMs didn't get names. But since we got Jarvis, we started giving names and titles to them. So we still haven't fully fleshed out what we're going to continue doing, but this is just the way this happened. So we're running Let's Encrypt on Chappie. So what this allows us to do is generate Let's Encrypt certs for the rest of the cluster. So when you get the padlock in your web browser, that's an SSL cert. Those needs to be validated and checked. So whenever a Let's Encrypt request comes into the cluster, it goes to that VM so that we can centrally manage how those certs are generated. And then those certs are used by the rest of the cluster to serve secure content to our users. Then we have the games VM. And at the moment, that's only running Minecraft. So we set up this VM. The reason we called it games was in the hope that we would run other games on the cluster as well. But at the moment, we're just running Minecraft, and that is running quite successfully. The next VM is called readybots. And this is a VM that's used by our members to run Reddit bots for Reddit. We didn't give it a proper name because it's not actually a proper VM. We don't know if it's going to stay or not. At some point it might be renamed. So the reason I brought this up mainly is because there's two different types of VM on Skynet at the moment. You have some VMs that have a public IP address, so anyone in the world can access them, and there's some that have private IP addresses, so they're only accessible from the network. So the Reddit bots one is one of these ones that's only accessible from inside the network. So to access this this VM, you'd have to log into Skynet using your Skynet account, and then from the Skynet box log into the Reddit bots virtual machine in order to use it, because it's not accessible from the outside. The next VM is called Student Admin. This is a VM that I set up recently that will be used by student admins to log in to Skynet, and then from this box they will be able to log into other boxes to perform tasks that they've been given. Normally when the root team are logging in, they'll just log in directly into one of these boxes or into one of these VMs, or they'll log into their Skynet account and then log into one of these. The purpose of this this particular VM is so that when student admins log in, they log in here and it gets logged that they've logged in, and then every command that they issue to one of these boxes is also recorded. This is just in case someone tries to do something malicious. Or as well, it also allows us that if a mistake is made, we can go back, check the logs, see what actually happened, and then try and undo that. All of these boxes all have history as well, so if you run commands, the history will still be there, so we can check it. But this was just an extra level of protection for student admins. The next VM is the Wolves VM. So what this VM does is, previously all the Wolves services for Wolves.ie were integrated into the Skynet cluster. So like their web hosting was on Caro, their MySQL was over here, their mail was on Jur, and it was spread all over the cluster. Because of GDPR and security and all that kind of stuff, we didn't want to be able to see any of that stuff because it left us liable for GDPR for the Wolves.ie as well as CNS. So all of the Wolves services are now kept on a Wolves VM, which is managed by Keith, who's the external contractor, I suppose, who takes care of wolves.ie. The next VM is called Connor, and this is an FYP server. So one of the things that we try and do for our members is allow them to use VMs on Skynet to run stuff for their FYPs. So this is actually a VM that I'm using for my FYP at the moment. So at the end, when I'm finished, that VM will be spun back down and there'll be basically more resources for someone else to open up the VM. I just called this out to let you know about it, that the resource is there, and we would encourage people to try and use it, because we want our members to get use out of this equipment. The next one is another private VM that's only accessible from inside the cluster, and it's called COVID-19. And you probably saw that we took all of our spare resources and put them into a VM to donate them to COVID-19 research. So this is an example of a VM that we would spin up just for a short period of time and then spin back down and delete just while the service was needed. And finally we have Meet. 2 E's. And what Meet is Meet is our new video conferencing tool, which is enabling our members to connect and us to run events and stuff while this crack is going on. Yeah, so that's a complete overview of the Skynet cluster, all the machines and services that are available at the moment, and kind of the basic layout. In the future, I'd hope to go back and do a walkthrough of the machines on video, so that that was recorded as well. So this is the first in a series of lessons. The next lesson is going to be about networking. Yeah, so thanks very much for listening, and I hope you got some use from this.
A fully annotated digital copy of the diagram used in this presentation is available at skynet.ie/downloads/network.pdf.